Welcome back, boxing fans, to Sean on Boxing. Today, we're going to talk about Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. We're going to talk about why Devin Haney is getting a lot of negativity thrown towards his name, even though Ryan Garcia is the cheat. And then we're going to go watch the fight. Feel free to watch along. I will be showing it here, and we can break it down and talk about it. I felt that I was one of the few people on YouTube that actually felt that going into the final decision, Devin Haney still could have won. But the problem was, of course, too many knockdowns resulted in him getting beat on the cards. But we're going to go check it out, watch it one more time, and sort of downplay a lot of this dominance. Because I just watched a video today where people were saying that Ryan Garcia put on a masterclass. A masterclass. But stay tuned. We'll be back with that. Jump on in and join. Welcome back, boxing fans. So I was laying in bed today and I was listening to Pro Box or something, and or the guy from CompuBox, his channel with Algieri, even though Algieri wasn't there today. And they were talking about how they don't understand how Devin Haney is getting so much hate thrown towards him, even though he's not the one that cheated. He's not the one that got caught using PEDs and came in overweight, which is fair. But I think when you do that, you're being a little simple-minded and you're missing some of the bigger points that preceded that, right? And the nuances are important because then you understand why people were happy about the result and why people were defending Ryan Garcia. Even though if you watch my channel, you know, I was not defending Ryan Garcia's PED testing. It is what it is. I said exactly how it would play out. Ryan would get suspended and the fight would become a no contest and Devin Haney would get his O back. I had some people coming on my comment section trying to mock me because now Devin Haney is undefeated. But I wasn't defending it. If you have a problem with that narrative, you should go check out Ego Boxing and Showbiz the Adult, because those were two of the biggest channels on YouTube that were both defending Ryan Garcia and his PED. A lot of other channels, of course, are all over the internet every day, literally every day, coming out with content regarding both Haney, Tank Davis, and Ryan Garcia. And we know why they're doing it, because they're hoping to get clicks. They're hoping to get money off of AdSense and of course, super chats from their subscribers. So that's why they're continuing to beat a dead horse over this topic. I didn't do that because I knew how it would unfold. It was just a matter of time to allow it to happen. And that's what happened. And now that it's officially announced and we see some of the kickback regarding it, the fact that Ryan Garcia is going to be suspended for a year, and now Devin Haney's talking about taking a year off. It's comical, right? Comical, this back and forth pseudo hate, this rivalry, you know, this disdain between them that you know, people want you to believe, even though the reality is this is no different than Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. This is two fighters capitalizing off an opportunity to fill their pockets with cash, knowing that boxing fans are stupid enough to buy into it. So good luck looking forward to Haney Garcia 2. Because that is what's coming to you next year, probably in May of 2025. But we'll move on. So let's check out my list. When I was lying in bed today thinking about the 10 reasons why Devin Haney is getting hate from some people around YouTube. And I'm not saying racism could not be a part of that, but that's not my narrative. So I'll leave that to other channels. JB, he's going to be all over it. I'm sure they can talk about that, even though that's a very simple-minded approach. But from simple-minded channels come simple-minded approaches. Raf's in the house. Haney lost. They are delusional. So let's move through. So Haney hate. Number one. So one of the things, and obviously this is something that mostly YouTubers and hardcore boxing fans would have noticed. And this was the aligning of Devin Haney and his father with the LDBC. Paul, salute. Of course, Devin Haney, the Haneys aligning themselves with the LDBC, and then the LDBC jumping on them like they had Wilder and Errol Spence previously, being their new whipping boys, the new faces of their channels. Of course, this was going to get a lot of negativity thrown towards Devin Haney, because we've seen the LDBC and their premise, the way they've done things, right? The heavy-handed approach they consistently use when talking about boxing, all to create an us versus them type of narrative. And they use this so they can make money off of these dramatic topics of boxing. So we know what's happening. We understand the whole Tank Davis, Devin Haney narrative now that's going back and forth, primarily between LDBC channels and PBC channels that have taken one side of the fence. All to do what? Support one particular Black American fighter so they can go back and forth and create a lot of money and finance, putting out the same videos day after 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 day. So that was one reason why a lot of hardcore boxing fans have sort of went against Devin Haney, his alignment with the LDBC. You see this towards Donaire and his wife as well. People scratch their head and they don't understand how these two Filipinos are aligning themselves with the fucking LDBC. They're already millionaires. Why would you align yourself with one of the toxic groups of boxing fans around boxing, right? It made no sense, but, you know, especially a group who disdain you, are racist towards you, and don't really support you, but you're going to support them by giving them content and reinforcing narratives that they're pushing on the channels, right? You can't make this shit up, but it is what it is. So let's get to point 2. Of course, this came a little earlier, and this was no white boy will beat me. No white boy will beat me. So you come out with that narrative, and now all of a sudden, all non-Black boxing fans look at you, and they're just waiting for you to be exposed on your stupidity by making this blatantly racist. And this came after they aligned themselves with the LDBC. No surprise there, right? This was the same kind of thing we saw B-Hop do and end up getting knocked out by multiple white fighters. Knocked the fuck out. So with Devin Haney, inevitably the same thing happened. He lost to Lomachenko, but was gifted a decision, but yet hardcore boxing fans knew what was happening. Then, of course, he just got his ass handed to him by Ryan Garcia, right? And so now that whole statement looks fucking ridiculous. Sure, Ryan Garcia was using PEDs, but the point is, this is still burnt into everybody's memory of this guy who's not going to get beat by no white boy, literally getting his ass handed to him, right? Now, if that doesn't make for a ridiculous narrative, I don't know what else does. Sometimes it's better just to shut the fuck up and do your talking in the ring. A lot of the problem is guys like him are trying to become big through social media and this back and forth type of stuff. Remember when Devin Haney was calling out Gary Russell, 126-pound world champion, right? You know, this stuff all ends up reflecting negatively on you because we know what you're doing. Clout chasing to build your name. And it's the same thing the LDBC is doing now, using him to try to build him up, but using Tank Davis's name to try to build up Devin Haney. Let's move to point number 3. Point number 3, and this came out specifically from LDBC channels, talking about Devin Haney being the face of boxing. Devin Haney being the face of boxing. Like, it's bad enough we saw some people like JB and others put Devin Haney number 2 on their pound-for-pound list just behind Bud Crawford. That was ridiculous enough. But to say now he's the face of boxing above Tank Davis and Canelo Alvarez and Anthony Joshua, whereas he's not as big as fucking Jake Paul, right? And sure, he was the more celebrated boxer, but Ryan Garcia is the bigger name. Ryan Garcia was the A side in that negotiation. So when you're talking about being the face of boxing, yet you're fighting Tank Davis's leftovers, and you're the B side to him, how does that make you the face of boxing, right? It just makes you look stupid, and it makes the people kowtowing to you look narrative driven, which of course they are. So, and we saw this whole play out with the whole recent stuff between Tank Davis and Devin Haney, right? Tank Davis fans looking for every excuse to downplay, dismiss, and shit on Devin Haney, who of course has done what Tank Davis has never done: become undisputed, unified titles, and fight legitimate top-level fighters, Lomachenko, right? Whereas Tank Davis never unified at any weight division, never tried to become undisputed. And really, the biggest fight, the biggest win on his resume was Ryan Garcia, a social media person who's never been a world champion, right? And we understand why Tank Davis did it. The same reason the same reason Devin Haney did it, because they understood the financial benefit they would get from fighting Ryan Garcia. And then people come out and act like Ryan Garcia didn't contribute. Think about the fact that Jake Paul is above Tank Davis on the Forbes list of highest paid fighters. Jake Paul, a social media celebrity. He's ranked higher than Tank Davis, who's number 7. Ryan Garcia is number 6. Jake Paul was number 5, I think. Maybe number 4, but at least number 5. And that tells you everything you need to know about A-side status. But of course, the people pushing this primarily are narrative-driven black channels that consistently are looking for a way to push racism, even though primarily they tend to be the biggest racists in this whole YouTube boxing community, with the consistent racial narratives they're pushing and the complete racial bias that we see consistently from these channels. John McSmith, what's up? Hollow Ninja, Ryan and Devin agreed to rematch in a year after Ryan comes back. Ryan Garcia is going to whip his ass even worse now. Well, you know that's what they're going to do, because that fight's going to be even bigger. They're going to fight at 147. And even though there's no world title on the line, it's going to be bigger than any other fight in that division. Even though you have good fighters like Howard, Barrios, Stanionis, and of course, Boots Ennis in that division. But hopefully for any of those fighters, potentially a Boots Ennis, they can take on the winner and get their huge pay-per-view fight out of the way early in their careers. But let's move forward. So then another thing people were saying that gets a lot of people in their feelings regarding Devin Haney, number 5, the next Floyd Mayweather. People literally are saying that Devin Haney was the next Floyd Mayweather. Whereas when you look at early Floyd, he was dynamic. You know, he was far more exciting. He had real pop, right? Nobody ever accused Floyd Mayweather at 135 pounds, 130 pounds of not having knockout power, because he did. Nobody's ever thought that Devin Haney had knockout power, ever, at any time of his career. But people dismiss that. They talk about him being the next Floyd Mayweather. It's very disrespectful to Floyd Mayweather, even though these guys use Floyd Mayweather to literally criticize every non-black fighter who's doing something great in the sport, because of course then they compare him to Floyd Mayweather. And now they're comparing Devin Haney to Floyd Mayweather, even though what exactly had he accomplished up until that point of his career? I know, becoming undisputed by beating George Kambosos. That's literally what he did. That's it. That's like talking about Taylor, the middleweight champion who beat Bernard Hopkins. At least Bernard Hopkins was Bernard Hopkins, not fucking George Kambosos. Him beating Bernard Hopkins made him undisputed. No one really talks about him being an undisputed champion, because they understood the only thing he did was beat an old B-Hop in a weight division that he was growing out of. And then he never did anything to really solidify his position in that weight division and that star status that comes along with great accomplishments. Devin Haney's in a similar situation to him. He's more Taylor than he is Floyd Mayweather. So let's go to number 6. Beating Kambosos, making you a pound for pound top 10 fighter. George Kambosos, who beat Teofimo Lopez to become a unified champion, wasn't really on anybody's pound for pound list, even though in theory what he did could have easily elevated him into that list. Teo beat Lomachenko. He was elevated onto the pound for pound list, right? People were looking at him as a pound for pound fighter based on his victory versus Lomachenko. When George Kambosos beat Lopez, the same fucking energy wasn't being pushed towards him, because people knew what it was. It was more of a situation where Lopez dropped the ball and suffered his first defeat because of his own issues. The fact that he was ruining his career based on being greedy and money hungry, right? Nobody gave that credit to George Kambosos, because we saw what George Kambosos was. He was a top 10 fighter, good, but not great. Nobody ever thought he was a great fighter or elite. So when you push him pound for pound based on beating Kambosos, we can see why you're doing that. You're looking for a reason to elevate this Black American fighter. And so you're using this victory as a way to do that because now he is undisputed. The same way people push Bud Crawford to be undisputed, or sorry, pound for pound number one, based on beating Julius Indongu. Well, they both became undisputed, which is fantastic. You also have to look at how they became undisputed, kind of like Taylor, right? There's ways you can become undisputed by actually beating multiple world champions to collect titles to solidify yourself as the best fighter in the division. When Devin Haney beat Kambosos, the majority of boxing fans did not think he was the best fighter at 135. People still thought Lomachenko and Tank Davis were better than him, right? So what did he actually achieve by becoming undisputed? Of course, now he had the titles and he was in a good position to now negotiate with these other fighters for big fights and get good paydays. Congratulations. That's what you want. But as far as him being a pound for pound fighter based on beating George Kambosos, how does that look now? The way George Kambosos' career has unfolded, because people don't want to give Lomachenko credit for beating Kambosos a few months ago, even though Lomachenko did what Devin Haney wasn't able to do, stop him. But let's keep moving. Wayne Evans, what's up, my man? At number 7, Hollow Ninja says, let's not forget Tank ducked Kambosos the same way he ducked everyone else. He didn't duck Kambosos. I don't think he was ever in position to get a Kambosos fight, right? I guess maybe he could have forced the WBA to force a unification fight, or him as the WBA regular champion to face Kambosos for that WBA title. But at that point, yeah, maybe he could have done that, which would have put more pressure on Kambosos, right? Because obviously a Tank Davis fight would have been bigger than a Devin Haney fight, and obviously probably would have been bigger than a Lomachenko fight, which is the fight they were going for. But we know what Kambosos and his team were aiming for. They were aiming for a Lomachenko fight, right? So I think they also didn't want no part of Tank Davis. But let's look at point number 7 on the list of why some people are giving Devin Haney hate. And this was his cherry pick fight for Ryan for pay-per-view. It's not the fact that he's trying to cash out and make himself a bigger pay-per-view star. I justified that and said that it was a smart thing for him to do, right? But the point is, you doing that and acting as if you're doing something that's so significant. Well, no, because you actually were calling out Subriel Matias, you were calling out Teofimo Lopez, you were calling out a lot of other fighters as well. But why did you take Ryan Garcia, the fighter who had already been knocked out by Tank Davis, the guy that didn't have a world title? Because of the pay-per-view status. You were hoping that cherry picking him, kind of like Wilder did to Tyson Fury, would elevate you so that when you went to negotiate with Tank Davis, specifically with Saudi Arabia, you'd be in a position to get more money moving forward. So you can see a lot of what Devin Haney's career has been based on business moves, right? Not so much about legacy and career, even though the Lomachenko fight definitely was for legacy and career. So salute to Devin Haney for that. A fight he did not need to take, but was definitely a legacy fight. But every other fight basically was a business move to build his name and build his level of credit so he could potentially make more money and be a bigger pay-per-view star in the sport. We see this recently with the whole Martin situation, but we'll get into that in another point. And as I say, nobody has a problem with you cherry picking a guy for pay-per-view. It's the same thing Tank Davis did. It's the same thing Wilder did. It's the same thing many people do. But, let's not act like you did something for legacy, because it wasn't about legacy. It was all about money. Then we get to point 8. To make it worse, like Wilder, Devin Haney cherry-picked a dude who everybody felt was easy work. Even the guys that are now defending Devin Haney hardcore and defended him before were literally criticizing this fight and saying that Ryan Garcia gave nothing to Devin Haney. Well, that's not true. He did. Financial clout. pay-per-view star status, a bigger potential percentage in negotiation for a huge Tank Davis fight. So it did a lot. But the problem was, like Wilder, he was not able to close the door on that situation. Wilder ended up getting a draw against Tyson Fury in a fight most people feel he lost. And Devin Haney literally got exposed in that fight, getting dropped 3-4 times to Ryan Garcia. And we'll look at that fight after this. So stay tuned, check that out. We'll talk about it. We'll look at the fight as we go through, and we'll talk about who really was winning the fight and how, and how that fight unfolded. Haney ain't no Cotto. No, he ain't. Sabirius Matias depends on his power way too much. Yeah. When they make excuses and say Tank was too young for Loma in the past, I say Sotillo and Devin weren't young. The LDBC becomes speechless. Well, that's the thing, right? That's a narrative, because it doesn't mean anything. It's just an excuse to justify a guy ducking a fight you feel he can't win. The same way Wilder's team said that, oh, Wilder doesn't need to fight Klitschko for unification and potentially become undisputed heavyweight champion, because he's still young and still learning. So he's going to get knocked out, because in sparring, he got knocked out. So you're avoiding a fight with Klitschko. And then you let Tyson Fury do the heavy work. Okay, that's how it unfolded. But let's move through. So Devin Haney getting his ass handed to him and kicked definitely did not help him, right? And people, of course, loved it, because historically, people were pointing out the fact that he was chinny. And it was ironic, because people literally criticized guys like Inoue, Lomachenko for getting dropped. Not hurt, dropped, right? Caught, dropped, get up, continue to go on to win a fight. So when Lomachenko and Inoue get dropped, all of a sudden they're exposed. They're not that good because they got knocked down. Because great fighters throughout boxing history have never been knocked down, knocked out. But Devin Haney getting dropped multiple times, right? Kind of kills that whole narrative and exposes the racial side to this. The reason why these guys are being criticized is because of race. Whereas, of course, when it happens to Devin Haney, people are going to justify it and defend it. Oh, it's because Ryan Garcia is on PEDs. No, we all knew Ryan Garcia had a dangerous left hand. Tank Davis knew it. Everybody knows it. That's why we gave Ryan Garcia a little bit of credit in those fights, because we understood that basically he is dangerous. He's beatable. But if you let your guard down, if you don't take away that left hand, you potentially could be dropped, knocked out, exposed. And for Devin Haney, it not only happened once, it happened multiple times. The same punch continued to land, right? And so that's definitely something that needs to be addressed moving forward, especially if they're going to be rematching in 2025. Now, number 9. So now Devin Haney doesn't want to fight Sandor Martin to defend his title, which means he probably should be stripped of the title by the WBC. He wants to retire and take a rest until Ryan Garcia comes out. And he made a good point. He said that if this fight hadn't happened like that, he would be getting paid more money to fight Sandor Martin. That's true, and that's a good point from him and his team. His worth would have been far more if he didn't get dropped multiple times by Ryan Garcia. But even if he would have still won that fight and not ended up losing on the cards, that still would have stuck. And Sandor Martin still would have been a boring style fighter, right? We've seen good fighters, top fighters, not fight particular style fights because we understood that they're just not marketable. You can't make a lot of money doing it. Right now, Canelo Alvarez is in the same situation, being forced by the IBF to fight William Skull in a fight nobody's interested in against a boring fighter. It's no different than Devin Haney versus Sandor Martin. Those fights, it's going to be hard to pay Canelo or Haney as much money as they want, taking on an opponent that they know is not marketable and won't sell, right? And unfortunately, that is the situation boxers put themselves in. Boxers put themselves in that position by price gouging promoters on fights where they don't deserve as much money as they get. And then in other fights, this is what happens. But let's move through. So Machado says, I still think Haney's title should have went vacant after he lost, it probably would have been the best thing to do, right? Because now Devin Haney wouldn't be in this same situation where now he basically was going to be ducking Sandor Martin. Dale says, so you title this live watch party, but you spent 20 minutes talking about black people. Dale Bailey, what are you talking about? This is a video about Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. Of course, I'm going to be talking about at least one black person. But as I say, Dale, you can fuck off if you don't want to be here. At the beginning of this, I told you exactly what I was doing. I have 10 points of why Devin Haney is getting a lot of hate, and then we're going to get into watching the fight. So I don't know what your issue is. Well, I know what your issue is. Mental case, but okay. So Paul says Devin Haney's career is cooked. Well, maybe, right? People talked about how Taylor, after his ass whooping to Julio Cesar Chavez, was never the same. And it could be a similar situation. We have to wait and see. Luckily for Haney, he is still young, and actually taking a year off probably wouldn't be a bad thing for him. Sean, what's your thoughts on Haney ducking Paro? Hearn offered Haney another world title shot. Haney never responded. Well, I don't think he ducked him. I think we have to be honest in the situation. The WBC already mandated Sandor Martin. So it's not as if you could unify at this point. We know why Hearn did it, because Paro just won. He wasn't going to aim in that direction otherwise, but now that he's there, he figures that's a fight that's marketable in Australia. So he's just looking at options and what's available. I don't think there's any truth to it. Why isn't Clemens, Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame? My bad, off topic. PED use. Because actual PED use. Hollow Ninja, thank you very much. You're a good man, Chopin. He says PBC stands for Prevent Bud Crawford. Roy says, as much as I criticize Tank, it's pretty pathetic how Haney fanboys are clout chasing Tank. Tank will do Haney bad. It definitely looks that way. Dale Bailey just proved Sean's clan ties. He proved my clan ties. Paul Masters, I don't understand your comment. Did he prove his ties or mine? I'm attached to the clan? Really? I don't understand how you guys want to accuse me of talking about black people, even though black people are part of boxing. If I didn't talk about black people, then wouldn't I be ignoring a large percentage of boxing? You guys are a little too fixated on certain topics. But number 9, of course, Devin Haney retiring until Ryan Garcia comes out. Why? So he can get a big payday fighting Ryan Garcia again. And we know why, so he can get revenge, just like Wilder tried to get revenge versus Tyson Fury. But it's not so much about revenge. It's far more to do with, oh, yes, his. No, I know. That's why he thinks he's funny, because he puts on his racist clan avatar, but then is one of the, I'm sure he's a black guy who's just parading as a non-black guy. But yeah, obviously part 10 comes out and Heavy Knee is now pricing himself out of the WC belt and saying that he's bigger than belts. So Devin Haney is now bigger than belts. Really? Is he really bigger than belts? I mean, he just wants to move up to 147 now and ask the WBC to make that fight between him and Mario Barros for a WBC belt so he can become a 3-weight world champion against a guy who was just elevated to the championship, never beat anyone to earn the title. So as JB likes to say, here's another guy chasing belts, right? And that's, of course, what Devin Haney is doing. But, of course, JB wouldn't say that Devin Haney is chasing belts. That's only a newie who's chasing belts. Or sorry, non-black people, non-black fighters are chasing belts. But black American fighters, of course, what they're doing is they're fighting for legacy and they're trying to be the best. I'm not making it race. JB is. When somebody tries to become a 3-weight world champion, I salute them for that. That's smart. It's good. It's more accolades on their resume. It gives them more opportunity to make more money in the sport. It also puts them in a position where they can make bigger fights. That's what I'm saying right now with regards to Boots Ennis. People are saying Boots Ennis should move up to 154. No, he shouldn't. Boots Ennis should fight Mario fucking Barros, and DAZN Eddie Hearn should be paying fucking that guy money to get that fight, just like they did for AJ and Martin. And then you should be fighting Stanionis. And then last but not least, working with Top Rank to make the fucking Howard fight so he can become undisputed at 147 and build his own legacy, right? And by doing that, then he's going to be in a position where he's the man at 147. Now he can move to 154 and instantaneously be elevated to mandatory by the WBO and by some of the other sanctioning bodies who also do that, and earn an opportunity to fight a big name fighter at 154 to become a two-weight world champion by beating a champion, an established champion, right? I mean, Devin Haney, the best thing he could do right now probably is fight Sandor Martin, a guy with no power. You move up and fight Mario Barros after that Ryan Garcia fight. Don't be surprised if Mario Barros knocks Devin Haney out. Don't be surprised, because Devin Haney's mentally right now is fragile. He doesn't trust his chin very much, and now he's moving up to a bigger weight class against a guy who's a similar size to Ryan Garcia, not the puncher, but a better fighter. Been in with better competition, right? A guy with a better chin. Mario Barros throws volume and puts his punches together. He's got a jab, unlike Ryan Garcia. The Sandor Martin fight for $2 million probably is a smart maneuver for him to go towards. It's probably the best bet, but okay, go for Mario Barros. Hope you can get $5 million for that fight and then get knocked out, and then ask yourself where your career is then. But to each their own, everybody making their own moves. So that's my list of 10 reasons why Devin Haney does get hate. And a lot of it is brought on by Dale Bailey, the LDBC. Of course, we know you are part of the LDBC, so we're not surprised that you push your narratives. Where are we? Dale Bailey hates Sean. FWTF. Devin Haney will be fighting the back of the KFC if he loses again. Feel sorry, Budman lost 5 years of his career. Everybody ducked him. Well, the LDBC and others, PBC primarily, literally ducked Bud Crawford from 140 right up to 154 now, and are happy to see Errol Spence try to be moved in front of him. People were cheering that, cheering Bud Crawford potentially being pushed out of world title fights so PBC Errol Spence could be pushed into that position. That just tells you everything you need to know. The guy Crawford knocked the fuck out, he deserved to fight more than Crawford did. How does that make fucking sense? Doesn't. Feel sorry, Bud, man. Yeah, JB still got Haney over Newey on his pound for pound list. Yes, he does. We met Bud versus Boots. No, we don't. We don't. Bud hasn't proven anything yet. He only passes the eye test. Exactly. And why does he need to put in against Bud Crawford? You don't want him to earn his status by beating top-level fighters and becoming a great fighter in his own right? You'd rather him do what Taylor did, fight B-Hop, win a title, and become undisputed, but then never go on to really prove his greatness and only have that one victory against the old fucking lion on his resume. That shit don't fucking hold weight long term. Boots' last fight was behind an elementary school dumpster. He only fights tailor-made opponents. Sean, you still can't read. JT the God. Well, what can't I read, JT the God? It's funny, JT the God is still here. Do you even have a channel anymore? I'm surprised that I even remember who you are, because it's that long since you've really been relevant. But at least now you probably don't live in your mom's basement anymore, right? You probably got a job, got a car, got your own place now. So congratulations on that. Graduating high school, and eventually that was going to happen for you. So cheers. I'm happy to see that you finally have matured, but not really. So let's get to this. Sean, you want me to come on here and roast you, Bud? Oh my God. Nobody wants to listen to you fucking talk. How are you going to roast me, bud? And on what topic are you going to roast me about? I like Boots, but it would be great to see Bud to silence the bandwagon fans. Well, let's not hate some fans who are Errol Spence fans who are using Boots Ennis to continue to criticize and hate on and shit on Bud Crawford and now put that towards Boots Ennis. Boots Ennis doesn't deserve that. Boots Ennis, like Bud Crawford, was also blackballed by the PBC. He was with the PBC as the, ugly stepchild, pushed to the side, never being given a big opportunity because he wasn't under the fold. He was Showtime, but not PBC. So he never really got opportunities he deserved, right? And that's unfortunate. I agree with that case, but Bud should move on and get the Canelo fight. Yeah. Beat Madrimov, become a 4-weight world champion, and then continue moving on with his career.